last time, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, because I was traveling last week. We didn't have any demos, but we had some topics. I don't remember what we talked about, but we talked. Did I send you the videos, Gabon? Did so. So today, demos.
I might have a demo.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't believe it anymore because we haven't had any demos in like months. So we'll see. Topics, we have Mike. Topics of the day, of the week, because Mike always has to fix.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know.
I mean, I can stop.
We'll see what are the topics. Depends. Right.
Then it'll become boring.
Political topics, sports, whatever. Yeah. Okay. So status going on for now, and to go, I will filter on main. 14th. What did we have on that day? We shall not taking globes, but take 7 and 6. Matt Bablo. 6 missing claims for Canada. The flow here. Okay. OpenID update 4.10. Add homogeneity display direct task. Like feature, we talked about it during the meeting. It was the mode. So if you have 1 or 2 forms and you want your workflow to redirect to one of these forms, then you can do that. Set the document image to document 8. Okay.
This one is still failing.
Okay.
Oh no, not this one. Nope.
No, this one. This one is just updating which image to use, so it should not break anything. Update workflows and test runners to use them at 8. So, Mike, your environment uses always 4 everywhere, even in C# and some other everything. Test runner. So it's hard to see. So okay, so you get 8, 4, 4, 4 with test runners. And the beans, okay. Surprising that we had that thing in main. Maybe we missed that. Interesting. SQL 3.5 because what? What's new in SQL 3.5? Async? I don't remember.
No, not async. I'm trying to remember that too.
You released it, so you should.
I released it, yeah. I should.
What change? Dependencies. Oh, dependencies maybe for the net 8 SQLite 8. X parameter order miniaturing.
Oh yeah, dependencies mainly. Yeah,
dependencies probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because the net 8 and the warnings with SQLite when you run on the net 8. I used to keep changing all my projects by adding space.
Prettier.
Okay. Mock 420. Oh. So there are some updates that we don't want to take. So what is the version we should not take for mock? What is the version of mock that we should take?
I think for 20.0.
I don't know, because main is important. You see, we move to 69, which is the latest. So I don't remember. So you say 420.0. So to be verified, because the license has changed and it's using, what's the name of this library? Sponsor link, which sends your email even hashed on their server. So we should be the version before that. And if there is no reason to update, then let's not update. Okay, so this version for sure was safe. This one I'm not sure. So let's check.
Why? What's what's the problem with the latest?
Where were you? Don't you have internet?
I do, maybe,
So,
maybe not.
Look at this. Yeah. So,
Yes.
so what happened is that Daniel, the developer of this library, decided to change how mock is working when you install a package in a way that we can get some retribution from his work. And as I remember, this project here, sponsor link, okay, which is something that it does also, is a tool that will track the usage of a package. So if you install a package that uses that, then it will track your usage and it will generate some build warnings when it detects that you are not a sponsor of the project. And in some projects, the build warning will fail the build, right? So you have to disable that. And to do that, it's sending your local email from the Git account to their server to verify that you are a sponsor of this project. And there were issues at some point that it was not even hashed. The email, it was just stored like this on their server, but even hashed, it's some private information that should not be sent automatically. And also the fact that it's failing your build because you don't sponsor the project. So
Wow.
The recommendation here is, so there's been like a huge social interest and discussions around that time. So just Google for mock sponsor link and you will see everything. And so people have even started to move away from mock and use other alternatives, even after the removal of the thing. And so maybe now there is no more at all sponsor link. I'm not sure, but yeah. That's why my question was, we might not want to update until this version, because it was working fine before. It's just, yes, there are fixes, but there is also a huge privacy question here. And all the users of, all the people who will clone Orchard will be users of Mock, and then automatically their builds will upload emails to the servers for verification and might fail. So that's why we don't want to force that. On ASP.NET Core, which is using Mock, I can type ASP.NET Core. Mock, here with the old version. This one, yeah, 4.10.0. This one will not get updated in a while. Okay. So it's always good to know why we are updating. It could be just to keep in sync because we don't want to lag behind and then do a major update and see that everything has broken. Like we tell customers to do with Orchard, like please follow with the latest versions of Orchard every time. It's easier than just do a big change. But it's also nice to know what bugs it's fixing. If it's a minor like .68 to .69, it has to be explained because there is no reason. It's not a breaking change. There is no new feature. It may be just a typo. There is no reason to update. It's just a build for nothing. A patch version, a minor, maybe. A patch, maybe not. Support for the same way here. Look at that. Yes, SQL, we updated a minor one. We didn't even know what was changed, right? We don't remember. Well, it was important for us, but maybe it doesn't matter. Okay, so drop support for Net 6.7. So this was discussed. Why should we drop support for 6.7? So there is no reason to drop it. But by dropping it, we don't have to maintain custom code path for the Net 8 to improve from the new features on the Net 8. That's one reason. There is no known breaking change from 6.7 to 8. So any project should be able to build correctly with the Net 8. Unless proven otherwise, and then we might say, okay, so there is a big change between 6 and 7, so you can't upgrade to 8, so let's revert it and release again, I don't know, the Net 6 or the Net 7. But so far there shouldn't be an issue. I found some bugs in the Net 8, however, from other projects. I hope we won't find them, we won't hit them, but it's not problem. There was one on time zone, for instance, that we might use. We have to check, but if the test passed, that should be fine. Let me point you to one which we found. So Marco found a bug by updating genes in the time zone, so we might use that. So just want to be sure we are not using this API. I haven't checked yet, but I know about the issue. This one. Okay. And if we use the standard main property, so we need to check if we use that. I will paste it in the chat for those who want to check. Pasted. It has been acknowledged and it's fixed right now just in the Net 9, but I believe once it's merged in main for the Net 9, it will be backported to the Net 8 for the next version of the Net 8. So yeah, so talking about updating, supporting Net 8 only. And I think that's it. What else? Okay, that's my files. Link update from 1.11 to 8.0.0.0.0.0. I don't know about anything new. It's just a new version. They are just following now the .NET version. That's why it's a huge pain. Doesn't mean that there is actually any change or fix. It's just standard process sometimes just to follow the main versions. Remove async term from a synchronous method. Interesting. Missing connection dispose. Yes, so when we create a connection, we need to dispose it. Use C#12, so forcing the version to C#12. Why can't we just do latest here?
I was wondering the same thing too.
There might be reasons.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why. Yeah, I seen
you
it. I was
don't
like,
have One reason could be that from one build to the other, it can't break. So usually when we update the new version of the language, it's just new features. It doesn't break the previous thing. Okay, that's a contract. You can't break. C# won't break the previous code if you upgrade to a new version. If we pin a version, it might be because we don't want to break a build just because a dependency changed, like the base image changed. The base image changed the SDK to .NET 10, and then there is a new C# version, and then doesn't build anymore. So we want to pin it because we don't want to take new versions and new changes or breaking changes, right, automatically. So floating version using latest. But in this case, we could say, no, we want the floating version because it won't break, just better. So let's use the latest version when we pin. I don't know.
I
For
remember,
me- Yep.
Sebastian, I remember there was an issue where we have a multi-targeting previously, but now I think it is fine
Yep.
if we go with the latest.
But- So it might be also because the version we target, like it might change, like based on the SDK you have locally, it won't be the same way. So maybe that's good to have a pin version, like maybe we're still compatible with .NET 8, and then someone has .NET 10 on their local machine, and then it will work because it's using latest, and we are seeing the latest versions, and it's using latest SDK.
Exactly.
And then we push, and it won't work anymore because actually the CI or the user doesn't have the same. So yeah, that could be a reason.
Exactly. Yep.
So let's keep it this way for now. Legal cleanup, so removing stuff that is not used. Good. Stop the only thing. Register data function Azure asynchronously. Oh, how do we do that? How do we do that? Set service state initialize. That a new thing?
that is a new thing that was introduced, like I think in the previous version. But there's actually an issue in this that John Theory fixed later on.
Okay, so initialize is a way to register an async lambda that will be executed in an async pipeline such that you can do async initialization instead of non-async configuration. So it's like we had the configure services async, right?
It's really initializing a service, not configuring. That's that's the issue with this. Is you notice there we're actually registering in there. It shouldn't
So-
really be done. So look at
when you
line
say-
48.
It's not about configuring the service initializing. It's called configure services, just to set up the services. It's configuring the service. Well, what services do we need? Even the instances. And here, this is what it's doing. It's just, or it's not. Add data protection. So this is adding services. Okay.
Correct, and that's what I'm saying. So if you look at line 48 there, you see how we're adding a service?
Okay.
It's actually not good right there. That's an issue.
Okay.
So the initializing should be done there, which happens at the end of the request. And then, so like this is a good method to initialize a service. Like in this case, you're actually making a synchronous call to the blob container, grabbing or creating a blob container name, and then configuring the service using the blob name.
Mhm.
But it's not good to initialize inside that function because it's kind of late.
Okay.
You'll see what I mean when you look at John
Okay.
Thierry's
Okay.
fix. Yep.
Those. The next amendment date. History office documents for such index. Exchange runner. Should not invalidate the cache of a volatile document and when do we have this? Yeah, someone reported an issue about that. Some state was not updated, it was changed because of this cache. So now it's fixed. Changed. Detailed action. So this is what you tried to fix, but it didn't work. So when I added the comment in the PR on this line, it was actually for this line, like why do we need to import the Golang image or whatever? But then you explain that it didn't work without it. Now we'll see the changes after. I think you removed it in there.
Yeah, it's documented in Docker. We need that to extract that information, but unfortunately, it's still not working on Windows for some reason.
Oh, I will explain what's happening here for those who don't know about the issue. So when we sheet 17, 17, right? No, it's not for 17. It's for 8. No, when you updated the images for 8, based on 8, something broke because before 8, the images for ASP.NET, not for the SDK, not this one. The image for ASP.NET is not multi-arch anymore. So for Windows, you have to specify which one you want. For Linux, you can use a generic one like this, and it will pick up for ARM, for ARM Linux, for what else? For x64 Linux, for all the things that you can run on. It will pick up the correct container. But for ASP.NET now on Windows, it won't pick up it automatically. So we need to specify which one we want if we're on Windows. And that's why we are trying to use something like that to build different ones, one for Linux, one for Windows. And then based on the current build, we use this base one or this base one. We can't use the base name ASP.NET anymore, a single one. We need to know if it's Windows and then, oh, it's Windows, so we need to pick up this one. So that's why. So the trick here is to say, let's have two aliases, one called build Windows, one called build Linux, and we have different base images. And then dynamically we'll say the current target OS is Windows, so it will pick up this one, which is based on that. It's the trick. In theory. Another way to remove user from the role. So new workflow activities. Identity web, little number update, fixed local build, I should do the work. This could be a default, but maybe you need to pass the argument there. Would you try that? So yes, dash platform. Okay, so you did that. And it still doesn't work.
Yeah, I thought just by passing that, it would parse it correctly, but
that's what I thought too, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to pass the value.
And unfortunately, I can't test it locally because my image is Linux. So for me, it would work, but I can't get it to work on Windows.
Fix to build. Let's try again. Either async method to content definition and not possible thread installation. Possible, we don't know, but why not? So, huge PR. Not breaking?
It is not breaking, correct, but there's a lot of warnings as soon as you update.
Because everyone is managing the content with that. Okay, so the idea is that since now, or is there an update to SQL here also?
No, that's a different PR. We're waiting on you to do a performance testing because that's what you wanted.
So this one is adding all the async that were required because in the content definition manager, there used to be no single async code, but since there is now a document manager and document store and whatever async thing, it needs to be async. Everything needs to be async all the way, and then every usage of the content definition manager also needs to be async now. So that's why this change is huge. Because now the content definition manager has the new async methods. So I should be made all of these. What's the attribute name? Obsolete. So there is the interface that should content. Content management abstraction. Let's look at this one. Interface, you see load tag definition is async, list tag definition is async, everything is async. And now the ones which are not async, calling to the async one, but also say obsolete. And there is a big one also that will come because SQL had some the same thing like non-async call that sometimes are async. So that will also have an impact. Clear notifications, maybe notifications. Let's scan clear. And then I found to the resource injection. So what's the difference here?
So okay. Well, there's another PR to actually move the display async call earlier. So what happened, because you are able to inject, so in the menu items, you're able to add resources like say, hey, I want some JavaScript or style. So what happened is that you build it early on, you build the shape early on to allow you to inject into different different zones in the same layout prior rendering. So by moving it up, we're saying create the shape, allow you to inject resources into the other zones, and then render other zones. So like that line 15 comes before displaying the head styles and the head scripts. So that's a trick.
Because it's because I didn't see what was in between.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. There is a problem, however. Might be important here. Because this thing is cached. So this is not supposed to be invoked after 5 minutes. And here it's always invoked.
No, the cache down there is for the menu, not for the nav bar. So the menu is cached different than the nav bar.
Okay, I was confused because I remember and I saw menu.
Yep.
That's you. And then navbar for me is also menu, but it's not the same thing.
Yep.
Okay. Why did we have that? I don't think it's a good idea to add that since we migrate to system text JSON. There will be issues. People will get cached entries when they don't want to. And then they won't understand what's happening.
I am personally not a huge fan of that flag, but what John Theory made an update to this PR to make sure we're only caching a read-only document, which in this case the settings. So when you load the settings, I think it's loaded as read-only, and so because of that, we can support the caching safely of the properties.
Too much complexity. For mature game. So if we are moving to system text JSON, the serialization might be even faster. So I'm not sure. Potential issues. Complexity with the new interface. I don't know. Typo. Yep. Value factoring. Remove compiler directives because now it's the update only. What was the difference? Option later, the factory, UI there. Ah, system clock. Yes, so this one is new in .NET 8. System clock is new. And why was it necessary? The base class requires that. So this one requires a clock, which is a nice system clock. It has been introduced in .NET 8 in the runtime. It's an abstraction to the clock. It's the same thing that we have in Orchard, that we have had since Orchard 1. To abstract the time provider. Update HTML sanitizer, sorry. angle sharp. That's a big version plate here. Down and it looks clear under not bar. Result and make you add a dot here.
No, we have in the editor, we have a preference to add a dot. So if you don't add it, it will give you like a little hint.
Don't forget my out it should be activated. Okay. Data protection initializer fix. Okay, so what does it look like?
So this is the fix that I was mentioning earlier. So you see how we don't really add services inside the initialize method, but we initialize services that are already defined.
Okay, so they are registered, but when they are resolved, it's invoking the initialize. You get the correct options.
Yeah, well, we update him because he registered him as singleton, and then the initialize method updates the singleton object that has already registered.
Entity web. Okay, good. Oh, also the one I forgot. I'm not sure what I'm doing. This one, let's create to make it fully backward compatible. And this one, actually, only this one. Self-closing divs are not W3C by market. Okay. And we said Hisham as a demo, maybe. Do you still have a demo?
Yep. Okay, let me share my screen. Hope you saw my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Basically, my demo about the Azure email module. Previously, we already have the SMTP implementation for the email module. Now we added a new implementation that uses Azure Communication Service, which has ability to send email through the Azure platform. So one of the issues here, because the default provider based on SMTP, we need to do some refactoring to allow other provider to hook into the system. So what I did basically, instead of ISMTP service interface, we built a new interface like an iEmail service. So the SMTP implementation built on top of that interface. For that, if we enable the Azure email communication service, there will be a new menu like the other one. We previously have as MTP settings. Now we have a new settings that came from the app settings for security purpose that contain two things: the connection string, which basically has the endpoint and the access key from the Azure, and also we need the default sender. Another thing I did here, because there are common things between the two provider or all other provider, email provider, like a default sender for now. So if we go to the email, we will find three menus: Azure email settings, which is the settings for the Azure and SMTP, and there is an email settings, which is the common one. For now, I think it is simple, just has a sender, but we could add in the future like a display name. And these settings will be common for all email providers. One of the issues I faced here when I go to the settings, email, SMTP. When we are trying to test an SMTP implementation and both the modules are or the features are active, and the Azure is the latest one that I active, in the DI, the Azure implementation should win. So luckily, here, if we go to the where the email controller, admin controller. Previously, we have something like this SMTP, I think, SMTP service, because we have single implementation. But now, if we have more than one implementation active, the last one will win. So for that, there's a new APIs in the .NET 8 that we can get the service by the keys, which is, I think, suited in this case. So if I go to the SMTP implementation here, instead of added as a scoped service, I register the service at keyed scoped service with the key, which is the name of the service. Same thing in the email.azure module. If we go to the registration, we register it as a key scoped service with the Azure email service. Now, whenever we ask the DI, just we need to pass the key, and the DI will recognize we are asking for a certain implementation. And this is useful if both features are enabled. But in most cases, for example, if I have any other view, the DI will take the latest implementation. And now if I need to test this, this is email. Oh, this is a test email. If we register it in the previous way, the DI will take the Azure implementation, which will broke this UI, but using the key service, both should work fine. Now, if I send an email, it worked fine because in the controller here, I tell the DI, please give me the SMTP implementation, even though the Azure is the latest service which is registered as an iEmail service implementation. And for the Azure implementation, I don't have any UI to test it, just I have a simple unit test. You can simply add an Azure email settings, which you specify the default sender and the connection string, which has the endpoint and the access key. And normally, like the SMTP, you can pass the mail message, and whenever you send, it should kick your email. The message should kick your email. So that's it from my side. Maybe Mike will have some input about the key service, because I think he is also facing some scenario in the SMS provider because we have a different implementation for his case.
Thank you. I have comments. I have all the comments to make. So first, that's a good idea to implement Azure one. It's an issue for that. Then I think it's good to introduce this new interface, email service, because SMTP is effectively to implementation detail or not agnostic.
Yep.
That's good. However, so it's funny because as soon as you showed that, I was like, oh, we need to use kit services. And the second after you showed the kit services, so that's great. And that's something I didn't mention with Net 8. Yeah, there is kit services, so it's typically something we will use in Orchard everywhere because we have so many implementations that we want to be specific to some components or to be able to pick one implementation over the other for some components that it would be super useful. However, I think you missed the point here because it works, that's fine. But what I would have used instead of a kit service to resolve Azure service or SMTP service is just inject Azure service or inject SMTP service. Oh, sorry, resolve and inject SMTP service or Azure service because you know what implementation you want. And I think that's why you missed the point of the kit service because you keyed the service by the type. It's exactly the same as registering the type itself. So I don't see why you use a kit service.
I got just one thing to add on this, which is exactly what I was going to say. But then one more thing, if you do need to resolve it from the controller like you have, you could just use that new attribute. There's an attribute on the service that you can put, and it will return the same
from
thing
key
as well.
service.
Yep. So you don't need to inject the service provider and just
I don't like it. No, we know it's been there since .NET 1, but I don't like it. I prefer to be explicit on the constructor instead of having an attribute on the property.
I agree with you 100%. But I'm saying if you need to do that, you don't need to inject the iService provider like that. You can easily simplify.
I see what you mean. I didn't see that. Yes, you're right. That's newer. So with a key service, there is an attribute for the key of the service. Yeah, true.
Yes, from key service. I tried, but I got an exception for unknown reason.
Oh, interesting. Maybe a bug. And maybe because nobody thought about doing what you did, which shows that it's wrong, that using the service itself as the key, which is weird. So yeah, here you should just have resolved SMTP service, SMTP email service. There is no reason to use a key service here. However, you can still use a key service here because, well, let me think. You can still register the thing as should you maybe not here. Maybe there is no reason to use kit service. Yeah, so this UI should just resolve SMTP service, and that's it. That can be complete.
Yep.
So I don't think you need kit service here actually, but kit service would be useful. So an example for kit service that will be useful. Imagine we want to cache stuff. And we have an high distributed cache, okay?
Yep.
And we might want to use different implementations of the distributed cache based on the service that we want to cache. For instance, the output caching, we might want to use, well, it's not a good example, but because it doesn't implement this interface, but let's say we want to use an implementation for high distributed cache that goes into Redis, another one that goes into memory, another one that goes on the file system. And we want, I don't know, Lucene to use Redis, but we want the output cache to use the file system, and we want, I don't know, the content manager to use memory. But they all need to resolve an high distributed cache implementation. Now you can say, I want high distributed cache. I want to register this high distributed cache implementation for the Lucene context. And then Lucene will say, give me the high distributed cache for Lucene. So that's things that we will be able to do now. But here, I don't think you need kit services.
The problem here, just I think because previously we have just a single implementation, and for testing, we need to make sure that we have an SMTP implementation only. So when I tested before I enable the Azure, everything is work fine. Or if you enable the SMTP after the Azure, everything should work fine, because the DI, when you get the email service, it will give you the SMTP implementation. But the problem raised when the Azure register after SMTP.
So you didn't understand.
And because of this,
I will re-explain.
Okay.
Show me your .add singleton or add whatever.
Okay, here.
Add kid service. Show me the add kid service here. Okay. Instead of saying add kid scoped, you say add scoped SMTP email service. Add scoped, and in between lesser than, greater than, the angle brackets, just SMTP email service.
I see.
You registered this service. So your controller resolves SMTP service. Then the line after, you do services.addScoped email service. So the line after. So perfect. Now line after. Services.addScoped email service. Comma. Sorry, email service. And in the parentheses, you say SP in a lambda. So that's okay. In the lambda SP row. And then you say sp.resolve SMTP email service.
Okay.
Okay. This way you have a single instance, which is SMTP email service that will be returned when you ask for an email service. But if you ask for SMTP email service, you will get the same thing explicitly. Okay.
Got it.
That's why I think you didn't need iKit service.
Yep. Okay.
Are you done with your comments, Sebastian?
Yeah.
Okay, I have one thing. I actually think you should use keyed services, and here's why. What you did here, I agree with Sebastian 100%. In this injection that you're showing right now, you just need to inject the SMTP email service, and that's it. Okay. I would still register in keyed services so we can distinguish between the different implementation.
Cool.
The reason why I suggest that, because I think you can improve the UI a lot. Currently, your UI, you have a lot of settings on the side. You have SMTP settings, you have email settings, and then you have, I think, Azure something settings, right?
Yep.
So I think that's not a good UI, at least from my perspective, because it's very confusing. However, I think what you should do here is follow the SMS implementation. If you want to show the SMS implementation, the UI, I can explain it better. But basically, the UI, what you can do is just have one UI called email settings, right? I don't care about the implementation details at this point. Just one menu item, email settings. You click that menu item, you'll be able to see like a radio buttons with all the implementation that are available. So in this case, you'll have SMTP service, or you'll see the Azure service, or if someone else wants to add some new service, they're able to very easily because they can just inject a keyed service. Now the UI, you'll have a radio buttons, right? So if you say, I want SMTP service, then you click SMTP service, you'll see on the same screen the SMTP configuration. If you change that to Azure, then you'll be able to see the Azure implementation. And then you're also building the UI for anyone else that wants to provide a service. For example, I like to do in my project, I have a service a pre-configured SMTP service, meaning like if I add a new tenant, by default, I gave them what's called system settings. So system settings provide out of the box for the tenants an email, pre-configured email that they can just use to send things like email notification, things like that. However, if they want to change it, they can select SMTP settings and they can override it by their own custom settings. So if I want to do something like that with this UI that you'll have, I can easily register my keyed service, and then your UI will allow me to do exactly, what I want by extending it. So you're making your UI extensible, and at the same time, you're making it much simpler because you have one menu item that you can click on it and you can go and change anything email related from one single place. That's the only thing that I think.
I have a counter argument to that, and this is also related to the keyed service. I like the fact that we can see SMTP settings and Azure settings in the settings menu and not in the dynamic UI, because that's changing the orchard paradigm for configuration. You may have different requirements for dynamically changing the UI that is unnecessary here. And the argument related to keyed service, based on what Hisham has done in the UI, is that I think it's fine to have SMTPs, to not have a radio, but to be able to configure SMTP service independently from Azure service email, because you might want to have the two providers at the same time, because now we have keyed services. So we might want a workflow task to, and not hard-coded, we might want to be able to configure which one to use in which context. And then the context will say, I don't want the email service. I want the email service keyed with workflow, because I want to be able to select what implementation of the email service from all the available ones will be used for the workflow or the workflow activity. So that's the idea. This way you could register, like I showed you, register SMTP service and then register iEmail service keyed out of workflow, workflow type, and then the workflow will resolve this one. So yeah, this way you can reconfigure independently which one you want.
Yep, what Mike did is great, but there's one limitation, as Sebastian said. If I need kind of fallback, or I will create a workflow that use certain implementation, if we go and select a certain provider, I'm not sure how we can make multiple provider work at the same time.
Well, I mean, if you have if your workflow depends on the implementation, like this, like this controller, you don't.
No, you're wrong. What you're saying is wrong. I'm not saying they depend on a specific implementation, because what I showed here in this screen is when you depend on a specific implementation, you resolve the implementation. Right. What I'm saying is when you want to be able to switch among different implementations provided by different modules, you don't know them. But in the end, you might want a different one from workflows than a different one from content management. I don't know. You don't know which ones yet, but you know you might want to be able to have different one. And that's why the keyed services are there.
So you're saying you might want to have to configure multiple services at the same time, and then based on your need, you can pick and choose which one you want?
Yes, and I don't know yet what will be the story for that, but keyed services are what, and that's the example also I gave with cache. We might not just have one cache, like Redis, everything in Redis. No, we might have 3 different distributed caches now. And in the end, they might all be the same in Redis. But now we have a way for each component to say what kind of distributed cache they want. They could have a different one now. So that is opening some things. We need to think about it for .NET 8 now, because we have that.
Cool.
Maybe we can have some magic where in the settings, we can provide the key as the name of the type that is the key. And these types, they might not be, the idea is that they are just tagging types. So I could create a new type that is completely empty, just so we can reference it as a key, right? And we could have a setting in the settings that is the name of the thing. And then we'll see, okay, give me the type that is the name in the settings, resolve the thing that is for this type, done. And this way, we won't get the default iEmail service. We will get, we can say in configuration, give me the iEmail service that is configured for workflows. And somewhere else, we can say for workflows, we can use Azure service. And for the other ones, we'll use SMTP service.
Then maybe instead of having the radio button, we can have a drop-down menu that tells us, hey, which is the default service to use?
That's the next step. Yeah. How do we configure that in the UI, or how do we expose that?
Yeah, and then maybe tabs, each service in a separate tab. But I think you should only need one page. You shouldn't really need multiple menu items.
I think we talked about it when you showed your feature. That instead of having the drop down, I said, why don't you use tabs or yeah, we talked about it. I think we should watch this video. But you had an argument about your dynamicity, which was different. Because we have this kind of UI, right, with tabs and
yes,
and so
yeah, we already support that.
Yeah. Okay, I have to go. It's late. I just have a few minutes to have lunch. Thank you, Hisham. Very good idea, and for driving the discussion and introducing the kid services. So please, for whoever watches the meeting now, or didn't know about the kid services, then look at the settings. It's opening lots of possibilities, and lots of libraries now are integrating that as their support. Awesome, great job. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, man.